So my first question was, what should European politicians do? What goals should they set for themselves in the fall of 2023? And after all, strategically, everyone wants the victory of Ukraine, but what to do in the near future, what to concentrate on? And here what Andrius answered me.
Well, I would say, first of all, that the West, the Western capitals, the Western political community should stop to be afraid of Ukrainian victory against Russia. That is one of the psychological problems which I see really is becoming more and more important and crucial, because if the West will be afraid of Ukrainian victory against Russia, that such a victory can bring collapse of Kremlin regime, and then some kind of Prigozhins will come into power, and that will be very dangerous because nuclear arms will be controlled by such guys. So such a fear of Ukrainian victory, which we can see sometimes, in the behavior of the Western leadership, is really brings very clear and negative outcome, because then the Western leaders are starting to hesitate to give more weapons to Ukraine or not. So that is why I am saying that one of the major goals for us should be very clearly, convincing the West not to be afraid of Ukrainian victory, to give Ukraine all the needed weapons without delays. There is no clear explanation why, for example, F-16 were delayed to be given to Ukraine for a year and a half. Why not? It was done immediately after the war started. So those are in some way mistakes or problems in the behavior of the West, which I hope the West will be able to correct. So that is my view, my wish for this autumn. And also, I would like to see that the West will not go into temptation to push Ukraine for very quick negotiations with Russia on ceasefire. Because if Russia will not lose this war, and there would be some kind of agreement on ceasefire, not maybe even allowing Russia to control some of occupied territories, it would be a big strategic mistake. So that's what I expect, that the West will not make such kind of strategic mistakes, and the West will understand that clear victory of Ukraine in this war is also the goal of the Western community, Western political leaders.
Earlier at the Kiev Security Forum, Andrius Kubilius expressed the opinion that Ukraine's victory over Russia will change the entire European security architecture. So I decided to ask how exactly, and won't Europe return to lower spending on security after the defeat of Russia and the disappearance of threats to Europe from the East?
It depends on the scenarios, what will be the impact of Ukrainian victory in the war on developments in Russia. For time being, this autocratic, dictatorial Russia, with Putin as a dictator, is the biggest threat for European security. That is, set by NATO declarations, which were, first of all, were approved last year in Madrid. Now they were repeated in Vilnius summit. And so NATO is saying very simply, authoritarian Russia is the biggest threat for European security. But, as I said, Ukrainian victory can change the situation. Of course, we cannot predict by 100% what will be the impact. Here can be such a situation that even if Russia is defeated and Ukraine is winning the war and all Russian army is pushed out from Ukrainian territory, Nevertheless, Putin is staying in power in Kremlin. So it will mean that the danger is still here. The same danger, even maybe increasing danger, is in the neighborhood of Ukraine and in the neighborhood of European Union. And of course, that will mean that we need to increase our security arrangements. We need to increase our deterrence and defense capabilities, spending more money on defense. Ukraine is showing a great example, that the Russian army can be defeated. But if Putin will stay in power, definitely, we need to be ready for this, aggressive madness in our neighborhood to become even more dangerous. But
currently, in the European Union, plans for the construction of new military plants and the production of equipment and shells are in full swing. However, after the end of the war, such needs may already disappear. So I asked whether investors and countries that are currently investing in collective security should worry that the invested money will not be returned soon or not in full. And this is what the former Prime Minister of Lithuania answered me.
Well, definitely such kind of planning is quite a specific one. From one side, really, we want to see clearly how Ukraine is winning the war. And in order to win the war, really, Ukraine needs supply of weapons from the Western capitals, on a much higher level. There is a problem that production of military equipment in the West is not on sufficient level, so there is a need of additional spending on increasing how to increase production capabilities, and that is what is needed to be done now. And that is a condition how Ukrainian victory can be achieved. Now, what will happen after the victory and what kind of weapons will be needed is definitely difficult to predict. But changes in Russia will not happen, during one day. It will take time, and we need to be ready, really, to show our deterrence and defense capabilities. Not to allow, again, somebody in Kremlin to start to dream about possibility to return to, aggressive behavior towards neighbors, and that will take time. That will, it will be needed for next decade or even longer period of time to show really, strong power on our side. Hoping that Russia will become a democracy, that Russian democracy will be stabilized and so on. We need to take care about that also. But for some decades, I do not foresee any possibility to diminish our defense capabilities.
And since Andrius Kubilius has said several times that the consequences depend very much on how quickly the war will end and what political processes will take place on Russian territory, I asked whether Western politicians should not already be developing a strategy for the defeat of Russia and its possible further collapse. So here is his answer.
Now, the question, of course, which we hear quite often, is very simple. We cannot, can we believe that Russia can become a democracy? And there are plenty of, experts and analysts who are saying, well, forget this is a naive dream. Russia will never become a democracy. It never was a democracy, and so on and so on. So I don't believe in such a, historical, determinism. I mean, yes, Russia is a specific country with, with very difficult history for itself, with 100 years of communist regime and so on and so on. So that is really a problem. But I see also the tendency that in this, post-Soviet area, democracy is slowly but spreading from the Western side, from the Baltic states, from Ukraine, into more and more into the eastern side of this, big territory. Can Russia split into different countries? Maybe, but that's what. Still, I'm not so sure that it can happen in a very effective way. And again, such a collapse of Russian state can be quite dangerous in its development. So it's better. I would say, from my point of view, it's better to look how we can help Russian people to transform their country back to democracy. And it will depend very much on the Western policies towards Ukraine. Ukrainian military victory, Ukrainian membership in NATO, Ukrainian integration towards EU also can help transformation in Russia.